Hello, this is Steve Ramona, your host for Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. I want to thank our sponsors, Infone, and with Infone, you can place your business on everybody's cell phone, turn their business into a web app, and with a click of a button, they'll have access to you 24/7. And also Pantheon.fm. Have you ever thought about monetizing and taking your podcast to the next level? Well, Pantheon can do that. Let us show you how. Reach out to Steve Ramona, the host, at infone.co/SR1, and I will go over with you how you can make your podcast really stand out. Let's enjoy the show. Thanks again, everybody. Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. This is your host, Steve Ramona. And I've got something very unique here. There are a lot of coaches out there, a lot doing some great things out there. But my guest is doing some incredible things and an offer, as they say in the Godfather, you can't refuse. Bobby, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
Well, let's jump into it. As we talked before the show, there's a lot of coaches out there. What makes you so unique, Bobby?
Good question. So I think one of the things that makes me most unique as a coach is my background as a therapist. So I started as a therapist, and because of my training as a therapist, I have a lot of exposure and respect for evidence-based practice, which means strategies that have shown through research to be effective and to work. And so that's one of the things that makes the coaching unique.
Yeah, it is. The other thing, we talk about the offer that you offer. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Sure. So the way I coach is immersive accountability coaching, right? I recognize that it is not easy to make a deep-rooted change, right? As a therapist, as a coach, I've learned that it's not easy. We have really persistent habits that we get frustrated with because they don't leave us. And if we have time, I'll get into why that happens. So recognizing that, I recognize the importance of having an accountability partner who helps the person, accountability partner, as well as a coach who helps the person to get to the goal that they want by staying in touch with them and keeping them accountable every single day. So what I offer, because I only take in a maximum of 4 clients at a time, what I offer is daily accountability partnership and daily coaching. And because of that, and because of the strategies that I use, which are evidence-based, my work is always fully guaranteed by a 100% refund policy.
And that's as long as they're a client of yours? Is there any
Yes,
parameters on that? Okay.
Yes, good question. So if someone works with me and they tell me 3 weeks in or 2 months in, they tell me, oh, I've been working with you and we've been doing everything we talked about, I'm not seeing the change that I wanted to see, they get all of their money back, including the sessions that I gave them, because I only take money that I know I worked for, that I know I gave value for. So
100% guarantee. That's pretty powerful,
100%.
listeners. Right off the bat, we start with this show with a servant gift. That's why Bobby's on here, because that's what a servant heart, a servant leader would do. They want to make sure they take care of them. Now, with that offer, you said you work with 4 people. Do you have any spots open right now? If listeners are listening, can they jump in right now?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I do, and I offer free consultations for a person who wants to try out the coach, who wants to see what coaching can do for them. We can have that conversation on video, and we can take it from there.
Well, that'll lead to how can they get a hold of you? Now, you have such a great offer, they may want to take advantage of, but they may want to jump in for a discovery call. How can they connect with you?
Sure. They can go to my website, which is www.theprecisioncoach.com. And there's a form over there that they can see, they can fill it out. And I reach out to them when I get that form, if they are a proper candidate, and then we schedule a meeting and we take it from there.
And I'm going to help book his spots that he has. I'm going to offer the first 3 people that reach out to you, Bobby, that mention the show and mention my name or both, $25 Amazon gift card. So your
Oh,
first 3 listeners that reach out to him, he'll reach out to me. I'll get your contact info, and I'll ship that out the time I get your contact information, because 100% guarantee I'm really sticking on this. That's pretty powerful, and that's a guy that believes in what he's really doing. He's putting his money where his mouth is. Now, let's talk about
yeah.
evidence-based coaching. Dive into that a little bit more so listeners can understand what that means.
Sure, but before we do, I just want to say I'm very grateful for what you just did right there. That is a very pleasant surprise, and it goes along with your serving mindset.
Thank
And
you.
like so I know you from before this episode, and like I've shared with you before, I appreciate the inspiration that you create for being of service. You have inspired me to pay even more attention to the value of just giving,
Appreciate that.
and
That's the whole goal.
yeah.
Definitely. So let's talk about evidence-based. I'm curious because I want to learn more about it.
Sure. So basically, I don't mean to knock other people's and other people and their strategies that they use. People have different strategies, different coaches, different therapists have different ways of working with things. But I do believe that if something is not working, if something is not effective, it should be let go of, and other strategies and techniques should come to place instead, right?
Yeah.
More specifically, to be extra confident that what you're using will work, you want to look at what research has shown. Does this way of coaching, does this way of supporting someone pay off? Does it work or not? For example, accountability partnership is one of those things. Research has shown that people with accountability partners are significantly more likely to reach their long-term goals than control groups, than basically people who don't have the accountability partners. That's why I make that such a big part of my coaching. Along with other elements that have been demonstrated through research that, oh, this is effective. Because like I say, I started with psychology with doing therapy, and therapy has a big emphasis on research, because research is the true parameter of whether or not something works.
And
So
I
that's
like that.
evidence-based.
Yeah, and I like that because I'm a sports guy, and I just heard yesterday I was watching a game, and a guy said, "Well, this star athlete is taking the rookie and working out with them, making him accountable so he can be stronger and better player." You're just doing that in the real, well, not the real, it's a real world, but you're
Yeah.
doing that with business people to help them, right?
Yeah. In fact, coaching actually started with sports, right?
Yeah.
Coaches, if you ask most people what's a coach, the first thing they think of is a sports coach. And then we went and took it to apply it to other things, life coach, business coach, executive coach, and all those other things.
Yeah, that's
So
a
yeah,
good
that's
point.
a good, yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. Now let's talk about accountability. Can somebody grow without it?
Yes. In fact, people who are best at growing are people who know how to hold themselves accountable. So my goal is not to tell people, oh, you need an accountability partner, pay me for the rest of your life. My goal is this. So another, if I, maybe it's worth for me to take a few minutes to explain this. Another evidence-based part of my research is acknowledging the presence of what we have in here, which is called a reward system, which determines everything that we do, right? Anything and everything that we do has to have a payoff. We never do anything without a payoff. Even if a person is inflicting pain on themselves, for example, right? That pain is somehow serving them, right? Even if I go out there and do something painful, I'm doing that for a bigger purpose, correct?
Yep.
So that's the reason why Most people, when they have a resolution, when they decide to, for example, sign up for a gym and go 4 times a week, as excited as they are, as soon as, the second week or third week comes and they get up and they just don't feel like doing anything, or they don't have the energy, or they just don't feel that this is going to pay off for them. In the long run, yes, but it's not motivating enough, right? Then they stop, then they quit. That's because the payoff is not strong enough. Now, people who have been trained, people who have been growing their whole life, they know how to motivate themselves. They know how to bring back that energy and keep going. But most people need help with it. And this is where I come in as an accountability partner. I increase the payoff for the person by, number one, having them report to me every day. Most people like to take advantage of that, right? So that when they get up that morning and every cell of their body is telling them, I don't want to go, I don't want to do this, I just want to stay in bed, they remember that they'll have to report to me at the end of the day, right? So wanting to avoid that is an extra payoff to get them to do it. And number two, I refocus their mindset on why they can do it and why they should do it, why discipline is important. I remind them of the original goal that they came up with. I give them a boost, and I send them on their way to do it. In fact, everyone who starts with me, I encourage them to come up with a very challenging goal that they know they can do. And then what happens is, because it's very challenging, they keep falling back many, many times. And every one of those fallbacks is a point at which a person without a coach may have just given up. But I keep being behind them. I keep pushing them forward over and over and over. And they report back to me over and over and over until they see the long-term results, right? A person who has seen the results from working out, for example, by having lost the weight they wanted to lose, by getting their health back, is a lot more likely to continue, because now the payoff is a lot more clear.
Yeah.
So if a person works with an accountability partner who's serious and who is really holding him accountable, what happens is, after a while, they start seeing the effect of what they're doing. And that reinforces what they're doing. And my ultimate goal is for them not to need me anymore, for them to understand how being persistent, being consistent with the goal that they have, how it actually pays off in the long run. And then they'll learn to do with themselves what I'm doing with them to start with.
Education and action. You're educating them why they're doing this accountability, and they've got to take action. Even if they fall back, take action again.
Yes.
And the gym, I used to own health clubs in my family. I wasn't an owner, but I worked for 20 years in the health club. That is a great example of accountability. I go to the gym. I just worked out before this show. I just get up and my schedule, it fits in. I know 50%, 80% of people out there don't do that, but I built that because of accountability myself. That's one of the best answers I've heard about accountability. Because a lot of people will say, yeah, everybody needs accountability, but you nailed it. I'm accountable for myself, for my workout, not my wife, not her kids, not the people who live here. It's me. And it's so much freedom when you get there, right?
Right. And and to summarize what I said, holding yourself accountable basically means learning to increase the payoff when something is not motivating enough, right? To increase the payoff, to get yourself going, right? And then after you take the action, after you do it, then you feel more empowered, then you want to do more. That's why they say always take the action first.
Yeah.
Don't wait for the motivation. However, in order to take that action, there has to be some sort of a push. People who know how to give themselves that push, they keep going through until they see the results. Majority of people, they tend to fall short of following through with their goals because there's pain. There's pain in getting up early to go to the gym. There's pain in facing difficult things in life. If someone, for example, has social anxiety, they're shy, they want to go and talk to people, they might try it a couple of times. It's so painful, they don't want to do it again. But if I hold them accountable to do that over and over and over again, then they start seeing the payoff, and then they start seeing why it pays to be persistent.
Right. Now, not this would work, but now you have me thinking, I'm a personal trainer and say I'm a billionaire. and I say, Bobby, you lose 20 pounds in 3 months, I'll give you $100,000 check. Now, is that too much of a reward, or is that what you're saying? You know, most people will just feel better and healthier. That's their reward. But when you up the reward like that, does that help, or does it make it worse?
Yeah, because you just, anything that increases the payoff will make the person more likely to follow through with something that's painful, with something that's hard. And that painful and things being hard is why people don't persist, right? And so I serve as an external motivator to create that persistence until they see how it pays off, not just know it, but see it, feel it, experience it. And then they will feel empowered because they know that they took all that hard action to get there. Hard, painful, yes, because you have to get out of your comfort zone. But complicated, it doesn't have to be. So I make that distinction too, right? Change is hard, but it doesn't have to be complicated. I make it very simple through breaking things down into actionable steps for the clients. But I also make it known that if you want to grow, if you want to increase your fulfillment and happiness, you have to be willing to go through some difficult and painful stuff. In other words, get out of your comfort zone regularly, which I help you make sure that you do every single day.
I love what you're saying, Bobby. That is so true. And now we've talked about personal. You're right there with them day to day. The accountability part. Now, the other part that's unique that people probably haven't heard of is the precision coach part. Let's get into that a little bit.
Sure. So the precision coach comes from my emphasis on precision of what actions to take, right? Oftentimes you might go to a therapist or to a coach and they might just give you some prescriptive general idea that you could build off of, you could build on, and you could do something with it, I suppose. But the best and most effective way of making sure something happens is to turn that big long-term goal into very specific, actionable steps, right? If I ask you, what is your goal for a year from now? And you say, I want to expand my business. That's a great goal. But if you don't tell me, if you're not able to tell me what you're doing for that specifically today, like, I don't know, reaching out to 3 people and asking them for referrals, or spending half an hour a day learning about expanding your business, or whatever it is, if you don't tell me exactly the steps that you're taking, precisely what you will be doing every single day until you reach that goal, then I know that you're not necessarily on your way to getting to it, right? So having a very specific plan of action is extremely, extremely important, especially for people who like, well, everyone likes clarity, but for people who can get overwhelmed with vague goals that are, you know, it's so easy to just have a goal in your mind that's vague and sometime in the future I'll do it. But to turn it into steps that you're going to start doing today, that's what makes certain that you're on your way to that goal. That's why precision is important, because I always like to create clarity. When someone says, I want to do something, the next question is, what does that mean for today?
You customize the precision. If I really granulate it down, because what you do for me may be different for Tony Smith, will be different for Joanne, because we have different businesses, we're different areas. That's powerful, because cookie cutter doesn't work in this, does it?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. You're right.
Did that come from your background as a therapist?
Yes, it does. Yes, because therapy does focus on what's known as SMART goal, which is specific, measurable, and the rest of it, like goals that are tangible. Research shows that tangible goals, or research shows that we have a tangibility bias. Our minds like tangible things. Those are the things we like to turn into action. But more than that, I've seen it in real in real life and in my own actions that I've taken, right? So for a big chunk of my life, I've always wanted to grow. I've wanted to take the next step. I've wanted to have an actually fulfilling life, but most of it was inaction. I just had these goals and ideas, and they only started to work. I only started to take huge steps when I learned to break down that long-term goal into daily plans of actions. So I know exactly, precisely what I'm doing every single day toward that goal. It doesn't really help to continue. So I'll tell you something that's kind of counterintuitive, because we're often told to keep focused on the long-term goal, on the big goal, right? There's a caveat to that. You can't focus on the long-term goal most of the time. It's good as a compass. It's good to show me, okay, which general direction I'm going. But once you have that direction, it serves you best to refocus your mind to exactly what you're doing today. Especially if your goal is ambitious and big, it can get very overwhelming if you keep looking at the goal itself. So one of the other evidence-based things is that if we refocus ourselves, if we focus on what's in front of us instead of some pie in the sky kind of thing that we expect to like pull us through, that pays off a lot more. So counterintuitively, I encourage my clients to stop focusing on that big long-term goal, because they already know what it is. Put it aside and think of what you have to do only one day at a time. Just for today, focus on what you have to do. When tomorrow comes, then you do the same thing for tomorrow. That's how they keep things simple, and that's how they keep their minds free of stress and of convoluted
ideas, and they win.
yeah.
The bottom line is they win, whatever that win is. Well, we're running out of time here. I want to
Okay.
thank you for being on the show. This is
Sure.
full of golden nuggets, a lot of knowledge you put out there. Can I ask
Thank
one
you.
more favor?
Sure.
Can you leave a tip for my audience to help them in their journey? Something that might be, let's get precision, some precision tip that you've learned that they could take from this show and use it in their own life.
Sure. I will use my own golden sentence that was taught to me by my mentor years ago, and it really changed my life. Very simple sentence, and the sentence is, there is always, always, always a solution. That's the sentence. When we internalize that, when we believe that for every problem there's a solution, then it's only a matter of time till we find it. So whenever you run into a problem, know it and repeat it as a mantra. There's always a solution. You start looking at things from that perspective, your mind will become a magnet to the solutions that are around you and you usually would miss otherwise.